What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the opinionated hippie, and today this is part 24 of what I hope is a never ending series of reviews and rankings of the Grateful Dead's archival concert release series, Dave's Picks. What I'm doing is I'm reviewing them in order and then ranking them in order. So, like, after I did one, that was number one. Then after I did two, I ranked one and two. Then I added three. So I'm going to do 24, and then I will show you where 24 falls in the midst of the other 23. This is a 3 CD release. It came out in 2017, and it is a complete show from August 25th, 1972, Berkeley Community Theater, Berkeley, California, my alma mater, go Bears. Don't know where they're going to go because they're pretty horrible in sports. But yeah, go somewhere, go protest. But yeah, 1972. And this is one of those shows that like one, it's a pretty well-regarded show, right? I think already when it was released, we had some of the show. We were missing parts of, I think, the end of the show. But generally, 72 is a highly regarded year. And this is one of those shows that, like, we all know music is subjective, right? Like, if 99% of the world think a certain album is the best thing that's ever released, there's going to be at least 1% that, like, don't care for it. They don't like it. They don't think that's good. And they're not wrong. It's their opinion. Music is subjective. This is really generally regarded as a good show. I mean, most of 72 is. But still, this is one of those shows that, for me, is just like, it's everything I want out of a Grateful Dead show. I look at the set list. I love the set list. Not just the songs that are in it, but where they appear in the set list, I think is particularly intriguing. Again, I'm coming at it as someone who's, if we count repeated shows that I've listened to more than once, I've listened to thousands, maybe thousands upon thousands of Dead shows in the course of my life. I like coming back to this one. I like the sequencing. I like the set list of the first set. I like where the songs fall. And looking at the set list of the second set, which is 4 songs and an encore, that's exactly what I want out of the Dead. 4 songs and an encore. So yeah, I think this is an absolutely fantastic show. We're in 72. Pigpen is not there anymore. Donna Jean and Keith are there. Vocals and piano, keyboards, respectively. Respectively. And again, Mickey Hart's gone. So only Bell on drums. Interesting show. Your typical almost 3-hour show, about 2 hours and 45 minutes. I think it's about that runtime. But the first set is 2 whole discs. I mean, you get an entire first disc, and then the second disc, you get close to 50 minutes on the second disc. So you get a really long first set, and then the entirety of the second set and the encore fits on the second disc. In fact, you even hear when they get to the end towards the end of the second set, Bob repeatedly saying, "We're running out of time. We're running out of time. Like, we got to do something quick." So they kind of have to, like, cut short a couple closing songs because of that. But it doesn't hurt the song the show in any way, shape, or form. First set, it's one of those first sets that kind of has a little bit of everything, if you ask me. Opens up with the Cold Rain and Snow. And Cold Rain and Snow, I think it kind of lost its way a little bit in the late 70s when it became a little too, like, nimble and quick, seemed a little more up-tempo. This is one of those grand, stately Cold Rain and Snows where the band just sounds like they know exactly what they're doing. It feels almost like an overture of sorts, like, hey, man, we're here. Listen to the song. All the notes are played perfectly. We're in good form. We're just going to rock this really just kind of like, I don't know, man, like this proud opener. There is something about, like, these 72 Cold Rain and Snows, when they open up a show, it just makes everything feel a little more like, yeah, like everything just feels really good. And this is one of those Cold Rain and Snows. It feels proper and right. And then from there, we just get great songs. We get a Black-Throated Wind to follow. We get in He's Gone, a third song, He's Gone. Pretty tight. Maybe a little, this one is a little nimbler then it would definitely get by the late 70s when it just became this lethargic mess before it kind of cleaned up its act in the 80s. Reached its peak over the course of the next 2 years. But this one is kind of nimble, kind of quick. We get some nice little solo in the middle. We don't get much of a jam at the end, just kind of the vocal kind of thing at the end. But it's a really nice version, and it's a really neat to hear this song in somewhat of a different attitude where they're not looking to like jam out the end and go into something else. So a neat third song. We get a Beat It On Down the Line, always in for that. We get a Loser, another song that I'm always there for. Again, both of these songs just sound perfectly well played. We get an El Paso. We get a really good Black Peter. Another song I'm a big fan of early on when they were doing them in like the first set. We get a first set Black Peter. When I was seeing them, they were always post drums. That was the Jerry Ballard post drums. It's really nice to see them in these early 70s when they're appearing in the first set. And this one, just another really excellent Black Peter. And then we get a Jack Straw to close out disc 1, but not the first set, because the first set's far, far from over. But that first disc, just really, really good songs. No really out there jams at all, but I think sort of the emotional energy of something like Black Peter. Loser to me always has sort of the narrative heft of Loser, I think, is always pretty impactful. That really neat He's Gone. Really, Jerry just nails it every step of the way, and Bob is doing his best to keep up, but Jerry's songs are delivering, and Bob's just not letting things slack at all. But just a solid first disc. First set continues on disc 2. We get a Friend of the Devil. Love this Friend of the Devil. It's kind of like an upbeat Friend of the Devil, but it's definitely not as jaunty as, say, like the actual studio version, because you're missing like, the mandolin and other instruments. But it just has more of an upbeat, friendly feel about it. And it's just, I don't know, it really neat. A really good lead off to disc 2 too. Kind of a sprightly, upbeat opener. Like, this is one that I wish had stayed upbeat and had remained in the repertoire and sort of maybe replaced Dire Wolf, which I'm not a fan of, never been a fan of for some reason. I think Friend of the Devil, this more upbeat, sprightly version, could have replaced Dire Wolf in those first sets and maybe been a better thing rather than slowing it down. Though I do like when Midland would get a solo in the slowed down versions, but I really like these upbeat Friend of the Devils. A Promised Land, just kind of right there towards the latter third of the first set. Then we get 2 back-to-back, just like hit it out of the park. Maybe a triple and a home run. We get a really nice Bird song. Still that early Bird song that starts with the chords, and then we go into the like riff. Then we just have that weird jam, which kind of ends and breaks down, and then we go back into the song. But I just think that those Bird song jams from early on in its career have a really special feel about them. And it really seems like the band is really starting to explore. They're not going way out there. It doesn't get really spacey, but it just feels like each Bird song has a slightly different flavor early on, and they're really starting to like push the envelope of where they can go. They're kind of limited because it's a Bird song, and it's not something they really like would burst open. It's not a piñata that they're going to break, but they do a lot within the confines of this jam. And then that's followed with a Playing in the Band, 17-minute Playing in the Band. Keith, especially as soon as we get into the jam, has some really tasty fills. Phil is really, really playful. There's some incredible playful energy in this thing that is just like, just really neat. Kind of upbeat. It's your typical 72 playing where it's really just kind of everybody's almost all over the place, but they're all over the place in a very playful, sort of united, energetic way. They start to flirt with the reprise theme minutes before they actually go into it. And that's when things start to get a little bit weirder, and they start to get like, little more psyche proggy instead of that weird random playing in the band jazz. But it doesn't get super weird, but you can tell they're starting to just flirt with other ideas. And they're just starting to like toy around with things that, in the years to follow, 73 and 74 especially, they would like in 73 or 74, there are moments in this one that I think if this was a 74 play-in, they would have gone off on like a 3 or 4 minute detour before coming back. But here you can just see they're kind of testing the waters of weirdness, but kind of staying focused on building back the energy back into the reprise. And then we just get a rousing Bertha to close the first set. After a while, it's like playing in the band stops and it almost seems like that might be the end of the first set, but then there's like some talking, maybe like 30 seconds or so, a minute, and then they go into the Bertha, which is kind of weird that they didn't jump right back, just jump into it, but it works. It's a good set ender. They kind of jam out a little bit at the very end. Jerry, like they're singing the "Don't you come," whatever that last Bertha, "Don't you come around here no more," or whatever that last line is, which I can never remember. Jerry starts to solo again, like we're really going to push it. Doesn't go quite as far as maybe it should, but it is a nice little burst of energy at the end. But yeah, just a fantastic first set. Takes up 2 discs. We get 2 epic jams in the bird song and the playing in the band. Maybe not the best of either one of these, but after everything that preceded in the first set, it works perfectly. It's really good. All the energy kind of feeds into these two jams, and then the band takes that energy and plays with it and just creates some just beautiful, absolutely improv moments. And then that leads into the second set, which is the entirety of disc 3, which is 4 songs on an encore. Truckin', into the other one, into Stella Blue. Then Stella Blue stops. Bob complains that they're running out of time, so they play a One More Saturday Night. They come back. Bob says, hey, we're running out of time. They play kind of a shortened Sugar Magnolia, but a high-energy Sugar Magnolia. But the Truckin', the other one, which takes up a total of like 44 minutes, it's probably the quickest 44 minutes of my life. Truckin', solid truckin', really solid post-truckin' jam. That jam just kind of goes on and on and on for a while. The band's just really not really going a lot of new places as much as they're just really pushing the energy of the truckin' jam and just kind of riding that as long as they can. We eventually, after that, we eventually go into a full, and this is another one, and I might be confusing this with playing in the band. This is the one where as soon as they hit that jam, Keith, his presence is just driving it and giving it a really just jaunty, but slightly, I don't even know if it's jazzy, but just giving it this really good vibe that kind of pushes the jam and kind of elevates the energy. We eventually devolve into a full-on bass solo. I don't know where anybody else in the band is, but Phil is the only person we hear. We get a full-on bass solo before he doesn't really drop a run into the other one, but eventually they drop into the other one on that big E note. They kind of mess up the transition into that. It's a little awkward. It's not the smoothest, but I think it's the and I think they mess up something before that. It's a little bit like, oh no, they're not getting it, but then they hit that ba, and then they're just off jamming. We get a really nice, healthy jam before the first verse. Pretty much just your straightforward pre-first verse other one. We get the first verse, and then from there we're just kind of like, we're back into jam territory, but after a while, we kind of like, feels like things are going to melt down, and then we almost like shift gears into like what almost sounds like a truckin' jam once again. It just has a little bit of that kind of truckin', slightly boogie energy. That doesn't last for very long, but it's almost like the band is trying to like coalesce around an idea and not devolve into space, but eventually they devolve into space. We get some typical sort of early 70s, Dark Star, other one, space exploration. That kind of gets a little Pink Floyd-y vibe for a while, where it almost seems like there's like, they're trying to make sound effects and create like an actual like atmosphere instead of just like space improv. And then after what to me always seems like maybe 15, 20 minutes, like we get a really good, healthy jam. We get the first verse. We get another really, really good, healthy jam that goes on for quite a while. They start to, like, it starts to break apart. They try to coalesce around this truckin'. I call it a truckin' jam. It doesn't sound like truckin', but it reminds me of that sort of driven energy, that kind of falls apart into a deep space. I think the deep space is just incredibly just captivating, especially when we get those weird like Pink Floyd vibes. And then the next thing you know, sure enough, 28 minutes has passed and Jerry's playing the chords to Stella Blue, and it might be one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard in my life. Like, it's not the best Stella Blue ever, but those chords, when he just starts playing it out of sort of the ashes of the other one, it is just, it's just one of those moments that makes the entire 44 minutes that preceded it just incredibly worthwhile. Like, it makes all of that like, oh, that was the point of all this, to build that energy, like to funnel it all into like this opening, beginning of Stella Blue, which is beautiful. The Stella Blue, I think this is like around the 10th. It's an early Stella Blue, right? I think it's like the 10th ever Stella Blue, or at least that has been documented. Whether there are set lists from this tour that haven't been released, I don't think so. But this is an early Stella Blue. And there's a couple of the verses where Jerry's, it feels like he doesn't quite have the cadence of the lyrics right. And they feel like either he's not hearing the band correctly or he just doesn't remember how it goes, but it feels like the cadence is a little off, like he's rushing it. Like, it's like, it's usually like, I think one of the great things about Stella and then one of the great things about Jerry slow songs is he knows when to leave space in the vocal delivery. And it seems he's forgetting where the space goes. And it's like, instead of like an all the years combined, it's like all the years combined, it's just like rushed. The music isn't necessarily rushed. It's just Jerry's delivery. And so there's a couple awkward moments where you're just like, oh, what? Whoa, oh. But then he eventually finds a groove and things are good. No real big epic jam at the end. It just kind of wraps itself up neatly. It stops completely. Then we go into a One More Saturday Night and we get a sugar mag for the encore. So, just a really, really, really good show, an excellent show. Like, it's pretty much everything I want out of the Dead. It's got an absolutely fantastic first set with two epic jams and a lot of really well played short songs. And then it's got a second set that's just heavy, heavy, heavy on the exploration, heavy on the improv, heavy on the let's see where we can take this music today, or let's see where the music takes us. Like, I think it's an absolutely fantastic show. And yet another reason why 72 is appropriately regarded as one of the best years of the Dead. Where did I put it? Not as high as you might think, right there. I put it in as number 9, so it's in the top 10. And I do think we're at that point in the Dave's list where, like, I think 9 up, man. Pretty excellent shows. Like, I mean, it was that 74 show that's at 8. That's the one that has, I think, the Mind Left Body Jam into the Spanish Jam. You can't touch a Mind Left Body Spanish Jam. I don't care how good of a show you are. I don't care if your truck another one is 44 minutes. So we're at that point where, like, I think the top 9 on here, it just kind of comes down to what your preferences are, right? This is all really, really fantastic stuff at this point. It might slightly be higher, but again, I'm looking at some of these other shows on the list and looking at the set list and go, yeah, it really can't be that, can it? But I don't know. It might be a little bit higher than that. I do think the reason it stays at 9 is the bird song and the plane are really good, but there are better bird songs and better planes from the same year that I know. And the trucking and the other one are really, really good, but I also think there are better trucking and other ones from 72. So we're now dealing with like comparisons between greats. Like we're now comparing LeBron James to Michael Jordan to, yes, Kobe Bryant to Tim Duncan. We're now comparing greats among greats. We're not comparing Michael Jordan to, say, Kyrie Irving. Sorry. But anyways, yeah, that's where we're at now. I hesitantly put it at 9. I wouldn't be surprised if other people had it ranked higher, to be honest. I wouldn't rank it any lower, just because that second set is so perfect. But I'm comfortable. With 9. But anyways, that's all I got for this. Thanks for watching. If you have this show or listen to the show or go check out the show, let me know your thoughts. Let me know what I got right. Let me know what I got wrong. You know how this works, people. But again, thanks for watching. Comment, subscribe, like, share, and most importantly, go listen to music, people. Go listen to all the music. Peace. Talk to you later.